the chosen one. Be brave, Professor. Be brave like my mother.
How do you feel?
Excellent. Really excellent.
Hey everyone, welcome to Hogwarts, a podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Hogwarts, a podcast. We are covering Chapter 3 of Half-Blood Prince, Will and Won't. Special episode today as we have Molly.
Hello.
And Jen.
Hey guys.
On this episode together for the first time.
Yay!
Woohoo!
We do have some shout-outs to give out first, and I kind of want some of your thoughts on some of these shout-outs.
All right.
Our first one is from Anonymous. I'm not going to even take a shot. It's a bunch of letters and numbers, but they posted on our Order of the Phoenix, Chapter 37, The Lost Prophecy. And they said, I think Albus is to blame for Sirius's death because he is older and is more aware of what's to come and what's happening. Should have been more open with the information he told Harry. Not all, but more. I'm not sure if that not all, but more means like the information bit or not all of the blame, but more of the blame. I'm not sure one way or the other. But we kind of had those debates at the end of Order of the Phoenix. Our poll currently on Spotify has Albus taking more of the blame than Harry. One of our other commenters said, all the blame should go to Bellatrix. She's the one that actually pulled that trigger. What are your thoughts?
This might be a slightly unpopular opinion, but I'm either leaning Bellatrix or Sirius shouldn't have come. Sirius
Like at all?
is an adult man who made his own decision to come and duel and was told not to and did anyway. So
you think Sirius should also bear some of the blame?
I think he deserves at least some of it.
Before Molly gives her 2 cents, the official poll on Spotify has Albus Dumbledore 64%, Harry Potter 36% as far as who gets more blame.
That's tough. I mean, I would assume Albus would have more blame, in my opinion. Leaning towards the commenter, Anonymous. Yeah.
You could make the argument that some of Sirius being so anxious to get out of Grimmauld Place is Albus's fault.
Yeah, I would agree with that too, though. Like, I would say definitely Albus and Sirius more so than anybody else.
I think, honestly, and this is the cop-out answer, there's a lot of blame to go around in that whole circumstance.
Well, so I guess what I'm interested in is, like, why are people blaming Harry?
I would assume the blame there comes from his unwillingness to employ occlumency or try, even though he was told he should.
Okay.
And then fell hook, line, and sinker for the actual trick that was being, and then took kids there and set the whole thing into.
Okay. From the perspective of if the question is purely who more deserves it between those two, I agree. I think Albus deserves it more. I think Harry's a kid, for as much as I was ragging on Harry for not listening to anybody in that last book.
Sure.
He's still a kid.
Fair enough.
But I do think so. Albus
And you can trace a lot of his issues back to Albus.
Yeah.
You could trace a lot of issues, just in general, back to Albus. So
The whole situation just was not the greatest. I just want to default more to the adults in this scenario.
that's fair enough. That's fair. We get a couple of comments from AV. The first comment was left on Order of the Phoenix, Chapter 38, The Second War Begins. And the comment is, why are you giving Harry a hard time? Why are you giving Harry a hard time for hating Snape, for docking him for trying to curse Draco? Snape for sure knew that Draco started up, but chose to dock Harry. So yes, that was nasty, Snape. Thank you. So I don't know that we were hating. This was a Elizabeth and me episode, so I will speak for Elizabeth for a second. We weren't hating on Harry for hating on Snape for docking him points. Our issues with Harry were, despite Albus literally telling you everything that Snape did for him after Snape left Umbridge's office, Harry still holds resentment like it's Snape's fault that Sirius died. That's where we have the issues with Harry. You were just told Snape did a lot for you, not against you. From Albus. That's where we have an issue with Harry blaming Snape. Snape giving points against Harry, like, whatever, that's Harry and Snape's like, that I don't really care about. I think it was more the idea of, Harry, Snape did help you out there. He tried. So why are you just like, he just wants to place blame at that point. He wants to shift his guilt to put it on someone else. And that's what it was. So we weren't really hating on him for the docking points. His other comment was one of Mollie and my episodes, Half-Blood Prince, Chapter 1, The Other Minister. And the comment is, the question is, how do you even become a minister? Is there an election? Totally agree, though. Would love to see more on interactions with Muggle prime ministers. How about the probable meeting after Voldy's defeat? Mollie and I went into this, and Jen, if you want a 2 cents, we talked about Churchill specifically. Could you imagine Churchill meeting the wizard? Like,
that would be great.
That would be a meeting for the ages, yes. I think. I think there is an actual election, if I'm not mistaken. I think we see a little bit of that in the Fantastic Beasts, especially Secrets of Dumbledore. I think they have elections, right?
Yeah, I feel like that was more for like the super head honcho.
Yeah, I'm assuming that trickles down.
Yeah.
So how do you think the meeting went between Fudge and the Prime Minister after Voldy's defeat? Do you think Fudge just showed up drunk? Celebrating the entire night, showed up drunk? He was like, hey, by the way, we did this. You have nothing to worry about. Peace. And then just left.
Hey, we're good now.
Kinda.
Okay.
That's.
Yeah.
I mean, Fudge doesn't exactly show the greatest reverence to the Muggle Prime Minister. He just treats it as a law states I have to update you on this thing. Here's the thing. Okay, bye. And like,
you're just here, and I have to do this.
It kinda. That's how he treats it. But you know, in the jubilation of Voldy's defeat, I could imagine it going like this. Like him coming in like, hey, I have great news. The best dark wizard, the greatest dark wizard ever, defeated. We're good. Dumbledore says he might come back, but that's okay. You know, we're good now. We're good. See you later. Right. You know, and before the Prime Minister can get like any clarification, like what? He says he might be back and he's already in the fireplace and gone. I feel like that's how that'd go.
Most likely.
Yeah.
That's the new headcanon now.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. I like it. Yeah. Cool. This chapter, Will and Won't, which is an interesting title. We get a lot of articles and a lot of letters at the very beginning. And then we get Albus visiting Privet Drive, which is an interesting experience, to say the least.
Such a fun one.
It's a fun one. And the Dursleys just love it. So we'll get into that when we get there. First of all, this is just a me thing. It has nothing to do with the substance of the chapter, but there are some great words in like the first 2 pages of this chapter.
Yeah.
Fug. I have never used the word fug in my life, F-U-G, and apparently it just means unpleasant atmosphere.
Okay.
Like weather-wise, unpleasant atmosphere. I wanted to like think fog. Clearly she meant fog, but nope, it's fug. Mm-hmm. She uses the phrase higgledy-piggledy, which I'm always a fan of. And then we get the profession of spokeswizards, which really isn't a funny word. It's a fair representation of that wizard's employment. But I just like the idea that they have such mundane jobs as like PR spokeswizards. I'd imagine they all resigned when Fudge did, I would imagine, because that's a hard job to spin that. So anyway, that's just a me thing. But we do get media speculation about the events at the Ministry of Magic and Harry now being referred to as the Chosen One.
I thought it was impressive that they were able to put together as much as they did. It's later in this chapter. It's like a couple paragraphs down. Neville's grandmother is quoted as talking about how Neville was one of the people when they like battled in the Ministry. So it's like it's not officially confirmed, but it's kind of an open secret. Like Neville's grandmother is probably not the only person.
So that's in regards to the Ministry trying to guarantee student safety at Hogwarts, which is a laughable thing to begin with. Yeah, Neville's grandmother starts pumping up Neville a little bit, which is kind of interesting to see.
I think it's a good thing.
I think it is.
You know?
What do you think that conversation was like when Neville gets back home? Like, hey, Grandma, guess what I did?
Probably a little bit of like disbelief, but like pride all at the same time.
Do you think Albus called like parents after this whole thing? Was like, your son was involved in an incident. We did get the bleeding to stop, but like, what's that call like? And especially with Neville's grandmother, I can imagine, like, you got in a fight? Yes! Like, I imagine she'd be, like, overjoyed of, like, oh, he was in, like, a little scrap. Awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
Good stuff.
It's good for her to pump up Neville, finally.
It almost seems like, too, like, the word travels fast, just like it does at Hogwarts. So there's got to be people talking about it.
I'm surprised. Well, do you think Luna's dad just put it in the Quibbler?
Ooh.
Like a blow-for-blow account, and it's just the Quibbler, so no one really takes it seriously. And then the Prophet just pays him for the story and then just takes it.
Well, a lot of people took the Quibbler more seriously after Harry's whole article, so maybe not.
I mean, if I was Luna's dad, I'd totally be like publishing this story.
I feel like he would be more interested in the rooms and like
talking
about.
Yep.
That's for sure. He'd want all. Maybe we should be reading the Quibbler for all the details on that space room.
Exactly.
And what happened there. We do learn in that particular story that there will be a small task force of Aurors set to protect Hogwarts. Speaking of the Auror office, we do learn that Rufus, who I will refer to now and always as Rufus, succeeded Fudge, and he comes from the head of the Auror office. So that kind of fills in a little bit of his background and why he might have been such a quick, pleasant upgrade to Fudge, who's not seemingly as battle-hardened.
It definitely seems like you're moving from peacetime to wartime. And this is one of the moves.
What are your thoughts when we meet Rufus for the first time, Jen, in the other minister chapter? What were your kind of vibes off of him?
Oh, I remember not particularly liking him. There was just something about him I didn't really trust.
Interesting.
And I couldn't really put my finger on it. And I think it was because Fudge kind of seemed a little bit like bumbling, but affable, and like he had his moments where he was more in denial of the situation than anything else. So I think on some level I felt kind of bad for him because he didn't feel like he was inherently evil, except for him and Umbridge. But aside from that, like he seemed like when we met him early on, he would listen and was trying to be caring and all that. And there's just something about Rufus seemed a lot harder to me as a character.
Okay.
And that just made me a little bit weary of how he was going to approach the situation.
Interesting. We do get some talk about how there's rumors of a rift already forming between him and Albus. How do we feel about that already?
I could see it, because it seems like Rufus is very like straightforward, down to business, doesn't want to like play politics. And I think at this point Dumbledore is just kind of like over it all, especially after the whole Fudge situation. Dumbledore has like bigger things on his mind right now, it seems like, and he just doesn't even want to deal with anything with the Ministry.
Yeah, I think there's a deep mistrust that Albus has towards the Ministry. And I like your point about Rufus being very straightforward, and I think he's genuine in that he wants to eliminate the problem, and he wants whatever Albus can give him to do that, and Albus doesn't seem very willing to offer up those solutions, which makes Rufus honestly understandably upset. I think Rufus has a point to be like, come on, give me what I need to do my job well.
Right.
And I like Fudge just kind of being in the other minister thing. Good luck with that. Like, good luck with dealing with Dumbledore. He doesn't really give you what you want. We also get this lovely pamphlet about protecting your home and family against dark forces. And they give you a step-by-step guide. Don't be alone outside of your home. Beware of darkness. No shield, disillusionment charms, and practice sight-along apparition with the youngins. Have security questions ready to go to protect against any Death Eater using Polyjuice, which we are very aware of and what that could be like. Watch for suspicious behavior, and if there is any, it might be a sign that an Imperious Curse is being used on your friends and loved ones. Beware the dark mark. Whenever you see it outside a residence or an area, call Aurors immediately. And then, oh yeah, and there might be these, they might be, there might not be. Just be aware of it in theory. So, like, what are your ladies' thoughts on that list of protecting your home?
I think side-along apparition is like the cutest sounding thing ever.
I like that idea.
And I think the security questions to protect against polyjuice make a lot of sense. I think this is going to sound really weird, but that would be my favorite part of like meeting up with someone and like having to answer questions about like past hangouts and stuff like that. I think we need to incorporate more of that.
Which escape room was my favorite?
Pretty much.
Gotcha.
That's exactly where. How much time did we?
Yeah.
Also, just a practical question. How does one call an Auror?
Yeah, that's fair. Do you send an owl to the Auror's office? That might take a while.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
Or
You're working in the Auror office and you just get like
Zoomed
zoomed
out.
out.
I like that idea. That's a solid idea.
I like Jenn's take that side-along apparition. Like, it does sound really cute. Like, you see your little kid. But I don't know. For me, I'm like, what would people's security question be? Like, that's what I would have more fun, like, asking for sure. Like, what potato chip do you see yourself as? Something like that.
Suddenly, wizarding BuzzFeed goes through the roof.
Exactly.
I would be alarmed, honestly, if I was like a witch or wizard, and I've been hearing for months and months and months that there's nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing to be afraid of. And then, like, after a week, they're just being told, don't go outside alone. If it's dark, don't go outside. Just don't do it. Oh, well, that's a hard switch in tone.
That was one of the things that bothered me, going back to your question from earlier in this chapter of, like, how do you feel about the prophet putting out, like, oh, here he's the chosen one, and, like, this is the break-in and stuff. Was there an acknowledgement that they were incorrect and, like, pushing out the...
I'm sure there was a one-line buried in the middle of a paragraph somewhere statement.
If I'm some random wizard, I'm getting whiplash.
I'm sure it was just briefly mentioned amongst, like, bad news. Other bad news. So, like...
We messed up, bro.
Yeah. Our bad. There's also a letter from Albus himself that Harry gets. And it's essentially saying that Harry will be going to the Burrow. There's a little mini side quest with Albus. And my question, where it's just me being me again in this chapter, is do you think the signature of Albus is worth anything, like an autograph? I mean, it's a me question. It's a very me question.
It is a very you question.
Like, he's the most famous wizard in the world, right? Can you, like, just cut that, like, signature out and just be like, here's an Albus Dumbledore autograph? Is it worth more if he puts, like, the Brian Percival Wulfric part?
Ooh.
Are there, like, value changes to it?
I mean, he is on a chocolate frog card.
Right.
Yeah.
So you would assume. Like,
So would that be worth more if he signed the card?
oh, yeah.
Are we now getting into specific memorabilia that he can sign?
I think that we are.
One of his, like, unique inventions in his office, if you get him to sign that, that's worth more,
Oh, that's got to be worth a ton.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think full name on a unique item that he made would be...
You know who we need to go to ask this question? It's Mundungus.
Oh, that's fair.
Yep.
Mundungus would know the answer to that question.
No.
Do you think he just at every order meeting, he's just like, hey, Albus, I just need you to sign this really quick. I like it. I like that thought. So Albus does arrive himself at Privet Drive, and this is where the action of this chapter really happens. We find out that it's only been a fortnight, roughly 2 weeks since Harry left, and he's only been at the Dursleys for that long. And I love some of Albus's quotes in these Dursley interactions.
He's on fire.
He is enjoying himself to an immense level.
100%.
He arrives and he goes, judging by your look of stunned disbelief, Harry did not warn you that I was coming. However, let us assume that you have invited me warmly into your house, and then just walks in. I would love to have that much confidence in anything that I did. That would be amazing. This is another comment from him that I love. is I don't mean Vernon goes, I don't mean to be rude. And then Albus cuts across him and goes, yet sadly, accidental rudeness occurs alarmingly often. Best to say nothing. I love Albus's quotes.
Oh, yeah.
They're so amazing. Before we get to a couple of others, we do note that Albus's hand now looks a little burned, a little blackened, but his reflexes are still amazing because he pulled his wand out super quick. And if you're the Dursleys and you see him, A, pull out a wand that quickly, and B, conjure a bottle and glasses that quickly, and send them flying off to everybody in the room, it's got to be a little alarming.
I would assume so. Yeah.
Like, do you think, from the Dursleys' perspective, Harry almost blowing up Marge without a wand, or Albus, fully grown, very wizard looking, because he did come in with like cloak and wizard hat, beard, the whole bit, just pulling out a wand, flicking, and then things just like appearing flawlessly? Which one would put you off guard the most?
I would say the Albus.
I agree.
Yeah.
That would freak me out the most. So
And
I'd be like, where the heck did these things come from?
yeah,
As opposed to like a young teenager's rage,
right.
you know?
Like I'm surprised you guys, because I was fully prepared for like, well, Marge almost blew up. That's got to be like alarming. But I think just the presence of Albus and then his ability to do magic that easily would put you on guard very quickly.
I think they're both alarming in their own special ways, because I think blowing up Marge obviously is a more personal
Sure.
touch, and also it's like a Harry can't control what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some fear in the sense of like you don't know what's going to happen because he's not actively controlling it. But on the other hand, to your guys' point, Albus has certainly the aura of wizardness around him.
Yep.
But also there is something kind of terrifying about someone who does have full control of their magic, who is making your sofa pick you up and drag you back and knocking glasses. So.
By the way, Albus, whoa, that's aggressive. You can like injure their knees.
I think Albus is just totally over the Dursleys right now. Like, he's just like, I am over you people, the way that you've treated Harry. Like, I just,
Yep.
politely.
He gets
I'm
into
gonna
them
be-
later,
yeah.
which is great too.
He really doesn't hold back
No.
this chapter, and it's beautiful.
He's like politely big and polite.
Okay, here's my thing. So these glasses start gently nudging the Dursleys' heads because they refuse to drink them. Question. Is this just a side effect of the spell just in place anyway? Or do you think it's a flourish that Dumbledore put onto would be a normal spell and just to amuse himself?
Amusement.
You just think it's a Dumbledore addition?
Oh, yeah.
I
do.
I hope. I really, really hope. And then the gentle nudging starts gently and then just gets more and more aggressive.
But I also don't blame the Dursleys for not wanting to drink that. Because
That's fair.
I would be creeped out. I'd be like, well, what the heck is in this?
It was like, what was it? Madame Rose Myrta's finest oak matured mead or something like that. And Harry, I think, it's like, ooh, this is really, really good.
Yeah.
But, I mean, some weirdo walks into your house and, like, offers you a drink out of nowhere. It would, yeah. I don't know that I would either.
We have seen, it's not too, it feels like a cousin of like the Howler.
Oh, with the more you ignore
The more
it.
aggressiveness, the more you ignore it, the more it's going to have some untoward effect.
So do you think it's part of the spell normally, or do you think he added it on?
I feel like there's probably two versions of that spell. One where it's just offering it to you, and another where it's this aggressive form. And I feel like he definitely made that decision.
And just to be clear, the mead isn't staying in the cups as it like hardly. So this is like splattering this. Also, the mead is alcoholic, yeah?
I thought so.
I assume.
So. It's mead.
Right.
Yeah.
So like Dudley being offered like an alcoholic beverage would probably I'd imagine that Vernon and Petunia is not super thrilled about that plausible thing either.
Well, we could get into drinking laws in the wizarding world.
Yeah.
Because butterbeer and...
That's true. Yeah. Well, fire whiskey's too much.
Yes. Yeah.
Butterbeer is okay. You do get a little bit of that too in here, where it's like, oh, Harry's coming of age, and Petunia's for the first time in this encounter is like, no, he's not he's not close to being 18 yet, and Dumbledore's like, yeah, well, he's a man when he turns 17. Like, oh, that's weird. Like, that's the weird thing that the Dursleys are like, whoa, too much. These glasses are knocking into my head, but the 17, whoa, one year earlier.
Yeah.
We do learn that Sirius's will has been discovered, and it's a brief one because he left everything he owned to Harry, which is not exactly what Harry wants to hear. But Albus has some questions about the will. Grimmauld Place, we don't know what's going on with that yet, so we've kind of pulled everything back. But there's a way to figure this out, and he summons Creature, and Creature's not particularly thrilled to be anywhere, really. Anywhere near Harry, anywhere near Albus, and anywhere near a Muggle residence. Essentially, they just figure out that Harry's able to give him orders when Harry says, shut up, and Creature begrudgingly still whines, moans, complains, but just silently, and ends up working in the Hogwarts kitchens with other house elves so they can keep an eye on him, which I think is a shrewd move. Does that mean that Grimmauld Place now goes even more derelict because now Creature's not even doing some work that he was doing?
I don't know if he was doing much work to begin with, because
Fair enough.
When the Order moved in there, Mollie was cleaning up the place a lot. Like, I think
That's
Creature
fair.
just kind of
That's fair.
found his little corner of the house and
Just hid.
yeah.
Or did he clean out of just spite? Or did he not clean out of spite?
I think he just wanted to leave everything untouched the way it had been before his...
Ooh, you're getting into
No.
the deep psychology of Creature.
I am.
Ooh, interesting. I think it's an interesting little experiment that Albus runs with Creature. And then he's like, oh, great, this clears up a lot of things. Cool, I feel much better now.
I felt bad for Creature, though, like, in a weird way. Because it's like, Harry's like, I don't want to, like, and it's understandable because of everything that happened. But, like, Harry was like, Creature, I don't want to see him at all. Like, you kind of feel a little, like, at least I did.
I liked the Albus checking Harry about, like, well, would you rather him go to Bellatrix? Because
Right.
that's a problem. Like, can't really have that.
Yeah.
I definitely understand Harry's perspective of not wanting to see him, but I think it's interesting, especially given how we know things went down with Sirius and Creature, and how that was a huge point of Sirius didn't treat Creature well. You should try to treat Creature well, and then the first thing he says when Creature shows up is, I don't want you. Like, that... I know it's really fresh, and he's a kid, and he hasn't processed it and everything, but it definitely gives a little bit of, like, did you not pay attention to what happened? Like, you should be nicer to...
It's hard, because I think Creature represents a
right.
lot of bad things for Harry. So every time he sees Creature, he's, like, reminded of a lot of really bad, terrible memories, which is exactly what Sirius was reminded of every time he saw Creature. So there's a lot of really deep psychology going on between all of those characters, and it's complicated.
Therapy.
Therapy. if only there was a house elf therapist. Maybe Dobby can be that for Creature in the Hogwarts kitchens.
Yeah.
He tried with Winky. He really, really tried.
He did.
We also learn that beyond Creature, Buckbeak also passes to Harry. And the idea is, well, Hagrid's watching him. That cool? Yeah, that's cool. Great. Hagrid will be pleased. Also, by the way, we're calling him Witherwings. I like how Albus is like, I don't think the Ministry would care one way or the other. I don't think they'll remember. And the guy that tried to kill him before is a Death Eater anyway, so he's probably going to try to kill him again. But McNair, that is. But whatever. We'll call him Witherwings just to be safe.
I just really like the idea of, like, so Hagrid has Buckbeak. They go to execute Buckbeak. Buckbeak flies away. Suddenly, Hagrid has another hippogriff. And everyone's like, all right, like, it's probably not the one that escaped that we tried to kill. This is fine.
Didn't he have a flock? I mean, he had is that a flock? Do I call them a flock of hippogriffs? I don't know what the...
Are they still all there?
I don't know.
It's also weird that it's like, okay, so this happened on your watch, but like you're not banned from having them. It just feels like there should have been more like tracking somehow. It just feels really lazy on the ministry's part of just being like, oh.
You could put like a little band around Buckbeak's feather or something like that, like they're tracking condors or something like that.
Well, I think the only one that really cared anyway was the Malfoys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as long as they're unaware that Buckbeak
Right.
/ Witherwings is...
And I don't think Draco's mind right now is really going to be focused on Hagrid's hippogriff.
I don't think Lucius's mind is not there either.
Yeah.
Harry ends up running up to his trunk because he never believed that Albus was actually coming in the first place, so he didn't actually prep anything, keeping his hopes low so he doesn't get disappointed. So he runs up, cleans everything, puts everything in his trunk, and then carries it and Hedwig, one in each arm, down the stairs. And again, I'm sorry, I got really distracted while reading this chapter. So my mind immediately goes to, how in the world is he able to carry that trunk with one arm? Because there's the books that he has, which can't be light. There's a cauldron that he put in there, plus all of his clothes, plus all of his other like random knickknacks and things that he wants to bring with that trunk, plus the trunk itself. That's got to be crazy heavy, right?
I'm sure there's some kind of enchantment on it.
Like a floating enchantment or something like that?
Like an extendable type of charm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it would make sense if they all had that, because I don't know how else they just like lug them around the way that they do.
Right.
Well, I think when he gets to Hogwarts, I think they do like levitate them and just like put them wherever they are, or house elves come and like snap a finger and like teleport them or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But he's like carrying it. And I feel like that's got to be crazy heavy. That's just me.
Well, but there's like two different types of charms potentially, right? Like there's one where it's just like it makes it easier to carry, and then there's one where it's like I don't even want to have to carry it, like send it away.
Yeah, I guess
So-
that's true.
Like that's what it was when I read it. I was just like, oh, there must be something that he's got because that's physically impossible for him to.
I was going to say, because that's a lot.
Just like push it down the stairs.
The cauldron alone has got to be like super heavy, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Again, my mind was on weird random questions this entire chapter. We get to what we kind of referenced earlier with Albus starting to admonish the Dursleys. And he, goes from generally genial and pleasant to colder and kind of more imposing. And he starts saying, like, you've never treated Harry as a son. He's only known neglect and cruelty. But at least he avoided the cruelty that you've shown Dudley. And everybody looks to Dudley and is like, and even Dudley's like, what did I do? Like,
I feel so bad for Dudley in that instance. What are you talking about? Why am I involved? Albus woke up and shows violence.
yeah, well, even when he went into the living room, he's like, let me just assume that you've allowed me into your living room now. I would have assumed you'd offer refreshments, but here I go. And like, yeah, he's on another level here.
He's just sick of it.
And I like how Vernon quickly realized, like, I don't think I can push this guy around.
No.
Like, is really, really interesting. But then he gets into the whole, like, one last time, Harry will have to actually come back here. Like, one last time, you're going to have to let him into this house. And then we'll kind of go from there.
I like the very end of the chapter where Dumbledore says that they have to pursue that flighty, temptress adventure.
Oh, that is a good ending.
That's such a good line.
That is a good line. I do like that line.
Great quote.
He's on fire this chapter. It's
He's
amazing.
on fire this chapter. I think she just generally has some wonderful word choice. Again, fug, higgledy-piggledy, and spokes wizards.
Higgledy-piggledy just feels so out of place for me.
I just think of Piggly
Yeah.
Wiggly.
Yeah.
I'll be honest.
Well, on odd wordplay, we will end the non-spoiler, and we will get back with the spoiler section, which will feature one thought that we had from one of our previous chapters that we'll get back into, and Jenn on her thoughts of Half-Blood Prince. So we'll be right back after this break sound. Before we get to our break sound, I'd like to acknowledge our friend Andy, who helps us produce our intros and our break sounds. If you want to hear more of Andy's work and like Formula One racing, check out the Outlap F1 podcast. It's your one-stop shop for Formula One news, insights, race previews, and reviews. You can find them wherever you listen to podcasts, and they even have a YouTube page. So check out Andy, Cody, John, James, and Deanna, and join them on the Outlap.
Where is he? Where's my 1-1?
All right, so we are back with the spoiler section of Chapter 3, Will and Won't. And I just wanted to kind of double back on an idea that we had for the Spinner's End chapter. And we didn't really get into it a whole lot, Molly and I, but we'll try to discuss it now. So when you were first reading this chapter, Spinner's End, did you really think oh man, Snape is really a Death Eater? Oh man, we've thought he was on our side as a member of the Order, but he seems pretty locked on in his role as a Death Eater.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty crazy that he would agree to that. I was kind of like, wait, how is this all going to work out? I never really liked Snape. I still have a hard time liking Snape. But, I mean, he's a gray character. He's not black and white.
Yeah.
But definitely it was like, all right, well, I could never figure that out. Whether he was with the Order or with Voldemort, but Dumbledore trusted him. So I was like, there's got to be something there. So I don't really have a huge definite answer because I don't fully remember
Your first kind of reaction?
my first reaction to that. But I was probably like, what the heck? Why would he agree to that? That I know I probably thought.
Yeah.
So,
Jen, what were your first thoughts when you get this chapter of Snape, Narcissa, and Bellatrix? And Wormtail. We can include Wormtail. But the real three of them kind of interacting in such a way that really made Snape look pretty legitly Death Eater.
So I read this book after I knew some of what was going to happen.
Spoilers.
So, right. So I can't really speak to, when I read it, it was just more of a, how do we get from A to B? And I thought that that J.K. did a really good job of, you end Order of the Phoenix and Snape has just helped Harry and alerted the Order, and it's like, okay, so he's definitely on the Order side. And then right away we start Half-Blood Prince, and it's like, wait a minute, now Snape is hanging with the Death Eaters, and seems pretty plausible hanging with the Death Eaters, but he also seemed pretty plausible in the last chapter, so how is this, I think it's a good job of, you still just don't know. You don't know where his loyalties lie, and I think she did a good job writing it that way.
Yeah, I think she does a really good job of trying to keep you off balance with where his character and his loyalties lie. And I just reading this chapter now on my whatever read this probably is of Half-Blood Prince, I'm like, he plays his role really well.
Yeah. And you're almost kind of predisposed to not like Snape because we've been seeing the whole series from Harry's perspective.
Right.
So you really almost, not that you want him to be on their side, but you're still expecting him to be on their side. So you're kind of getting whiplash through these chapters.
This is, by the way, this is the first chapter we get of Harry in this book. We're in chapter 3, and this is the first time we're seeing Harry.
Yep.
Which is kind of a cool twist on just the Harry Potter novels as they are. So it's interesting that you get a whole Snape scene before we see Harry Potter. But I think it was really well written, and the character kind of just sells you that, nope, I'm a Death Eater. If I'm willing to go to this length to make an unbreakable vow, I'm ride or die with Voldy. So interesting. Jen, you had some stuff for the spoilers?
So I had two things that I wanted to touch on briefly. One of them was, so Albus is offering them drinks, and he conjures glasses and Madame Rosmerta's mead out of thin air. How exactly does that work? Because isn't it Gaunt's law or Gambit's law or someone's law that you can't create food and drink? So is this just a really fancy Accio that he's just able to draw up, or?
Yes, I think because he has the bottle in his study, in his house, in his office, whatever, he's able to conjure the bottle.
Okay.
So to that point, yes.
Okay, because from what we've seen so far of the Accio things, it's the bottle comes to you,
Zooms.
not like just
Right.
not just appears out of like thin air.
To your point about that law, though, that law has been a little wishy-washy.
Yes.
Because we've seen in other chapters, we've seen McGonagall conjure food out of nowhere. Like to give them a plate of sandwiches, I think, after they crash into the Whomping Willow in Chamber of Secrets. I think they go into her office and she conjures some sandwiches because they missed the feast.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, house elves are able to maneuver food here and there. I'm assuming that's them conjuring, just teleporting something that still exists. They're not making it out of nothing. I think that's how that works.
That my understanding was that they were just teleporting.
Right. So, I mean, you can poke some holes in that law and like what's been kind of written, unless you just all wipe it away with, well, it exists. So you're just teleporting it from one place to another, I think is the way to explain yourself out of that hole.
Okay.
But
Okay.
yeah.
I was just reading that and I was like, that's
No, that's fair.
odd.
You could probably do that a couple of other times throughout these books of poking holes in that law. But I think as long as you don't like, there's no sandwich, and I just make like a ham and cheese sandwich, that I think is the heart of that law, where you just can't like create something out of nothing.
Right.
Okay.
But
And then my second point was, so they mention 12 Grimmauld Place, and Dumbledore specifically says headquarters. So now the Dursleys know about, like, I get that Dumbledore was the secret keeper for that. Aren't they kind of dancing around that a little bit?
if I understand the secret keeper magic correctly, even if like, because obviously Sirius know, like other people know it's number 12 Grimmauld Place, but they're unable to actually communicate that fact because they're not the secret keeper.
Correct. Dumbledore is the secret keeper.
Right. This is a good question. Because how Harry finds Grimmauld Place in the first place, because he looks up on it and it's just not existent until he reads the paper that says number 12 Grimmauld Place, and then he's able to see it. So does that mean that because they now know number 12 Grimmauld Place exists from Dumbledore's mouth, they would be able to see it?
Well, also too, is it still considered the headquarters because Sirius died? He passed it on
Right.
to Harry. They shut it down because Bellatrix could have been part of it. So did they like
Take
that?
off?
Yeah.
I don't think they took off anything, but I think they were questioning whether it could be or not.
Right.
So that's why Dumbledore is doing this little like testing thing. So I guess my answer to you would be that I think they would be able to recognize what number 12 Grimmauld Place would be, but I still don't think they can communicate where it is, if that makes sense.
Right, and I think that is supposed to be true of everybody else. But essentially, what I guess what my question is so Dumbledore says Sirius has left you number 12 Grimmauld Place. That okay, fine.
Mm-hmm.
But Harry then replies and says you can keep using it as headquarters. Should he have been able to say that? Because he's not the secret keeper, and he just said that in front of his family. Is there some exception that's going on here? Because I thought only Dumbledore could call 12 Grimmauld Place
Headquarters? Oh, I don't know if it goes that deep.
Because then where's the line then with the secret keeping? If the secret is that it's a headquarters, how can Harry say that it's a headquarters?
I think it's location based. You can't give up the actual location. Because isn't that the thing in Spinner's End? They're like, Bellatrix is like, well, you've been to the headquarters of the Order of the Phoenix. Why can't you give us any info on it? And Snape's like, you don't know how that magic works. Clearly, because I'm not the secret keeper, I can't divulge where it is or what it is.
Or like how to get there.
Or how to
like
get there or anything
getting
like
in.
that. But I could just tell you that, yeah, it's the headquarters of the Order of the Phoenix, but Bellatrix should know where it is because she probably grew up there. She probably spent time that you'd think, right?
Right.
I mean, as part of a prominent member of the Black family, she was probably there every Christmas, joyfully celebrating the holidays. But somehow she can't, like, get in there either. Or know that it is, or I don't know.
Yeah. It's a good question.
Does I don't know fully answer your question?
Right.
Yeah.
I thought it was an interesting exchange because I just thought it was weird that they could talk about it in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have anything else, or was it those two? Okay.
Those two.
So now it is the wonderful time to hear Jen's thoughts on Half-Blood Prince and why it is her favorite book.
Okay, so I think it's fantastic. Obviously, you've mentioned it's my favorite. It is. I like the direction that the book goes in the sense of I feel like it's a more maturely written book than some of the other ones, minus the higgledy-piggledy in this chapter. So already I'm contradicting myself. I love how involved Albus is in this book. I love that we're finally getting Harry and Albus time, and he's finally telling him things, and we're finally learning about the background of what's been going on, and we can see how we got here and like chess pieces moving around. I love the positive Slytherin representation. It makes my little Slytherin heart happy. Even if Slughorn can be a little annoying, I think at sometimes, at least he's not outright evil, which is, you know, step in the right direction. When I first read this book, I was a really big fan of Harry and Ginny, so I was excited that finally happened in this book. I don't know, I thought it was well written. I thought the plot was intriguing. I liked the Malfoy aspect of it. I thought it ended in the real gut punch of an ending. Like, I felt like it had everything I was looking for. It had mystery, it had intrigue, it had drama, it had teenage angst. It was... a reasonable amount of teenage.
I was going to say the right mixture of
it, not like the last book. But I think the biggest thing for me, honestly, for this book is it just felt like, okay, finally the pieces are starting to like come together, and you're starting to get the bigger picture. Because especially with the last book, you're so shut out from what's going on until like the last chapter when Dumbledore's like, oh well, whoops, my bad, I should fill you in. So it's like, yes, we're getting stuff.
I always viewed this book as just an enormous introduction to book 7. Like, it's a weird book in that you get the massive book of Goblet of Fire, you get the massive book of Order of the Phoenix, you get the massive book of Deathly Hallows. Those are all 700-page plus books. And then you get this little mini one, not really, but it's like 630 something pages, 600-ish pages. So you get this like little mini one in amongst these massive novels. And I always kind of viewed it as kind of an introduction where they're like, here's the setup. And then boom, with the big bang of the ending. And which is not a bad thing. I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing. Because like you said, it gives you a lot of necessary background that you need to progress. And obviously it gives you the answers as to how to defeat this seemingly invincible wizard that clearly even Dumbledore has had his struggles to beat. I don't particularly love all the Malfoy stuff, personally. But like I told Molly, I think the back end of this book is special. I think it's a great back end of this book. And that's another reason why I call it an introduction almost, because with the back end of this book, it's almost as if it's like climaxing. Like you're almost like getting to this peak of action before you start a little bit of a down...
Fall off a cliff.
Yeah, a lot of camping, which a lot of people have issues with.
I hate the camping so much.
I know. That's a thing we'll have to debate when we get there, but it's almost like the pinnacle is the end of this book.
It's one last look at Hogwarts, too.
Yeah.
It's like one last memory of Hogwarts for Harry. A little bit more of like the normal-ish teenage years for him, you know? And I think it makes sense to spend some time at Hogwarts and in those classes and dealing with the teenage struggles that they deal with, because you get into the real world in the next book.
I do kind of like the vibe that's given off with, we're going to get Slughorn here in the next chapter, with Slughorn and Snape teaching, but in different roles than we're used to. That's an interesting vibe. I like how Harry's developing as a student, as a leader, but at the same time, he gets sidetracked so often.
That's just who he is.
But I'm like, and even though he's right, and Molly and I talked about this, I get that he's right to be suspicious.
Yep.
But my goodness, it's like a kid addicted to his iPad. He's addicted to that Marauders map. And just like looking at it every 2 seconds. And I'm like, again, that's me putting what I had always thought of it in my head. So on this read, it'll be interesting for me to kind of sit back and be like, is it that? Is it as bad as I remember? Or is there some context around it that I haven't seen until this particular read? And I'm kind of excited for that, honestly.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
There's a really good, I don't know what platform it was originally on. I don't know if it was YouTube or something else, but it's a really funny clip of someone takes the scenes from Half-Blood Prince and puts it to like the typical teenage like rom-com like music, and they cut up all of the scenes to make it seem like it's this funny teenage angst comedy. If I can find it, I'll post it on the Instagram, but it's like my favorite thing.
That sounds amazing.
Molly and I mentioned, I don't know what your feelings are on the movie per se.
I liked it.
Okay.
I thought it was good. I liked the part where like I like some of the improvised parts in it. I thought they did a good job with like Malfoy and the bird in the vanishing cabinet. I thought that was like very like poignant scene, but
Sure.
I also liked some of the improving of like Harry and Hermione in the library where he's like, I am the chosen one, and she smacks him in the head.
Mhm.
I thought they did a really cute job with it.
Yeah.
So this is where we really differed, is I particularly dislike the sixth movie. It's my least favorite of the movies. It was the only movie I remember. It's maybe one of the only movies I've ever watched where I was actually angry watching the movie.
How can you say that when all of Deathly Hallows Part 1 is just them camping?
Yeah, but at least that actually happened in the book for the most part. They camped for a long time. So at least that happened.
It's not compelling to me.
That's fair, but at least it happened. Whereas there's some stuff in 6 that's just like, what are they
So
doing?
This is you and Elizabeth now. This is-
Yes, Elizabeth and I are very much on
Yeah.
the same page here.
But I feel like that, because like I had a big issue with the third movie because it felt so completely off, like the whole bus ride with the little head and all that. Like, I just feel like movie 6 was just very well done.
Yeah.
I don't know, like the acting and everything, like the little pincers.
Yeah, I love that part.
Yes, yeah. Where
Yeah.
like, I don't know, you're just so struck in the face in the third movie with,
I
like,
think-
what is this?
The sixth movie, I think, did a better job of sticking with the vibe that was in the book.
Yes.
And I think the third movie did not.
No.
So I did tell Molly that if I divorce myself from the idea of book has to equal movie, movie has to equal book, if I divorce myself from that, I will give you it's a watchable movie. Like I would enjoy watching the movie because of all the funny parts that you said and
Yeah.
all of that. It's interesting. I just have to like remove myself from what are they doing to this book?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Because some of my favorite parts of this book aren't in the movie.
Yeah.
Which really bothered me that night as I was sitting there for my Thursday midnight showing.
That's fair.
And I was waiting for him, like, okay, that was weird, but I'm coming up on a really cool part. I hope that part's not in the, And then I just felt bad.
Gaunt scene, I wish was in there.
Yes.
That, like, because that's one of my favorite chapters
Mm-hmm.
in the book.
And then this movie is actually there's a scene in the movie where Dumbledore goes to visit Tom Riddle, right? And it's the source of a lot of controversy in the Harry Potter fandom because him in that scene looks so old. And yet it's only like, I forget, like maybe 10 years after the Jude Law Dumbledore in his 3-piece suit. And you're like, but what happened to Dumbledore in like 10 years? And so there's that little issue. But, you can brush that aside. But it's interesting. But what you were saying with the angst, emo vibe, Molly and I discussed just the cinematography of the movie and how it's shot in this, like, almost a golden haze.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, and Jen, you were the expert on this, so I will defer to you. But as you were saying that, I'm like, the vibe of this movie with that golden haze in the background, for whatever reason, I get, like, Fall Out Boy music video vibes.
Oh, 100%.
Okay, I'm not completely off base
No,
then.
not at all.
All right. And maybe that's why you like the movie so much as
Probably.
well. Okay.
I never thought of that.
I could definitely.
I don't know
see
why.
that.
It hits
I
me
think-
like a Fall Out Boy music video.
I think also if I can, I'll find the clip of it as like the teenage rom-com, but it's also it's once you see it fitting into that, it's like the next step in my mind is like, yes, this is very emo and this could very much be like in a movie music video. So I get it, but I thought they handled that aspect of it really well.
You know, one thing we haven't really elaborated on yet, and it's our break sound that we have now debuted. Our break sound is the wonderful lavender brown. And we haven't really elaborated on, she comes out like a firecracker in this book, and in the movie she's hilarious. That actress is so good.
She's insane
at Lavender
in
Brown.
the movie, and I love it.
I love it. The part where she like fogs up the glass
Yep.
is so funny. And they're just all looking at her like, this lady is nuts. It's great. The part where after they break up, spoiler alert, after the part where they break up, and she's just like staring at them in the Great Hall.
She's digging her utensil
Yes.
into the wood.
So funny. She is great in the movie. But the breakout of Lavender Brown in this book is great. She's been a very tangential character at best through the series, and now she gets a spotlight. And her role is essentially make Hermione as jealous as possible, which is great. We needed to give Lavender a little love, a little wov.
Aww.
And that needed to be done. Jenn will be back next week, as well as Molly, for the Horace Slughorn chapter, and I am excited to get both of your thoughts on the man, the myth, the Slytherin legend, Horace Slughorn.
Yeah.
So we will be back next week with that. We will wrap it up now. Thank you all for supporting the podcast. I really appreciate all the support we're getting on Twitter and Instagram. It's been really wonderful to see. We're going to try to continue posting any comments that you leave on either of those sites. You can find us, by the way, I haven't said this tag in a long, long time. At HogwartsAPod is where you can find us both on Twitter and Instagram. You could also leave a comment on Spotify, participate in polls on Spotify. All of that really helps us grow. Please share the podcast wherever you can. It makes a difference. If you are so inclined, you can leave a voice message on Spotify, and we can input your voice into the podcast. So we'd love to do that at some point. And also, there's a support the podcast link wherever you find us, and that allows you to support the podcast financially. A donation really helps us. We put in a lot of time and effort into making these, so that would be wonderful as well. But with that, we will end it here, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to Hogwarts, a podcast. If you like what you've heard, please click the subscribe button on your preferred podcasting app and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at HogwartsAPod.